Let's talk about it. If you are watching live, put in the comments your favorite Mandela effect or a Mandela effect you really just can't wrap your head around. For me, I asked that in my Instagram group. I don't even know what those are called. Broadcast group. And somebody brought up the fact that the heart is now in the center of the chest, which is crazy to me because I did go to school for exercise science. I did study physiology and anatomy, and it's been such a long time though, but I do feel like the heart was always off center. And I know now in this reality, because I do study a lot about the heart is said to be directly in the middle. Obviously the beating of the heart that we feel is on the left side, but I need to think about that. Like this morning, I just saw that and I was like, oh, wow, I don't think that lines up. So somebody just said, Judd said, I think the CIA is playing tricks on us, manipulating history in our faces. I do not agree with that. I do not agree with that at all. But that's what a lot of people say the Mandela effect is. So I'm going to ask you all a question. Fill in the blank, all right? It's one of the most famous movie lines that ever existed. So it's when Darth Vader is talking to Luke, and the line goes like this: blank, I am your father. Blank, I am your father. So what would go in that blank? I've been asking people this for a long time, at least 10 years, and every single person has the same exact answer. The same exact answer. And I'm going to pull up the actual clip right now. So everybody has their answer, right? Of how that movie happened. Here it goes.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
He told me enough. He told me you.
No. I am your father.
So I do have one comment right now that says that somebody does remember No, I Am Your Father. I 100% remember Luke, I Am Your Father. And as I said, 100% of the people that I ask that are around my age remembers Luke, I Am Your Father. Danielle, how old are you? So if people are younger, I mean, obviously right now the movie says No, I Am Your Father. I just pulled it up on YouTube. If you search any VHS, if you search any DVD, any recording of that movie of any type in this reality, the line is no. Okay, so there's no argument about that in this reality, the way the movie was made, the line is no. For myself and every single person that I've asked this question to, it's Luke, I Am Your Father. You can even go on YouTube and find parodies of this movie. And once again, people that are, and I don't know when this shift happened in terms of age, but people that are older remember Luke, which means that the reality that we came through, I'll actually get to what it means in a second. So people are saying maybe society just started saying it, which could be true. Yes, but there's many, many, many examples. So we got a lot of people saying Luke. How do we know the video is true to the original? You don't have to believe me on the YouTube video I just pulled up, but go find any Empire Strikes Back copy in this reality that we're in now, and it'll say no. It was always Luke, I Am Your Father, as a child playing with sticks as lightsabers. Someone's saying I'm 77. So Danielle says she's 40. So There's Danielle's the only one that's saying, well, actually, I think 2 people said no. Most everybody's saying, Luke, I am your father. Someone's saying the films were remastered in the 90s. Once again, I've got another explanation like that. Luke, I am your father. That is all I've ever known. So what about, someone brought up Shazam. You guys remember the movie Shazam? Who played in Shazam? It was Sinbad, right? How do you spell Shazam? Shazam movie. Let me just share the screen here. Let's move on to something that would be, so another thing, I also think the saying was common, but I've never actually seen the movie. Yeah, so a lot of people are saying that the movie, that somehow there is a mass problem of our memory and that everybody remembers Luke, I am your father just because he says Luke, and that we all remember it incorrectly. So let me bring up a few other Mandela effects. So the Ford logo. So my father had Fords. My first vehicle was a Ford. For those of you who may be into cars, Ford never had this little curly Q thing on the F. And I know that because I grew up in Michigan, and Detroit is where these Fords were made. I'm not sure if they are anymore, but it's like car country. And Ford never had that. Let's see what else we got. Fruit of the Loom. My father also and my mother also bought us all Fruit of the Loom underwear. So Fruit of the Loom, if you guys look now, this cornucopia used to be on the logo. Now it is not. So there was never a cornucopia on the logo. Sometimes it comes up when you Google it because people are like, what happened to it? So they made fake images. But if you guys go look at Fruit of the Loom now, there was never a cornucopia. You guys remember Oscar Mayer Wiener? Again, I'm 42, 41. It's one of those. 41. I'll be 42 this year. And the Oscar Mayer Wiener, so it was named after a family, right? So how did they spell it? It was like Eiyer, something like that. Look it. You guys can see on my screen that Oscar Mayer Wiener is no longer a thing. The whole family changed their name to Mayer. And I discovered this around 2000. I remember being in my gym in downtown LA and watching this gigantic hot dog vehicle thing. It was like a bus hot dog shaped with a hot dog. And it said Oscar Mayer Wiener on the side of it. And I was shocked because that was never how the song went. I don't even remember the actual song. Here's another one, you guys. Here, fill in the blank here. Blank mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest princess of them all? Blank mirror on the wall. I mean, you don't even need to know the second line. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Look at everyone saying mirror, mirror on the wall. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Okay, let's look that up. Mirror, mirror on the wall. I gotta go to YouTube actually, because how do we find that scene? Because that scene isn't Mirror Mirror anymore. So it's getting difficult because people are rewriting all these. But if you guys find a name, or if you guys find,
Here we go. Heads in takeoff mode.
Let's fly.
if you guys find this video, I don't know if this is gonna be it.
Slave in the magic mirror, come from the farthest space. Through wind and darkness I summon thee. Speak. Let me see thy face.
What wouldst thou know, my queen?
Magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest?
There we go. So in that movie, there's no longer Mirror Mirror. It's Magic Mirror. Someone's singing the song. Oh, I wish there were an Oscar Mayer Wiener. I wish I were an Oscar Mayer Wiener. Yeah, I wish I was an Oscar Mayer Wiener is kind of what I remember. Mayer, M-E-Y-E-R is how they're spelling it. Mayer, Oscar Mayer Wiener. Oscar Mayer is how I remember it. Okay, so Mirror Mirror on the Wall is not it. You guys know about Field of Dreams too, right? And again, I've met people, to be fair, I have met people that do remember alternate realities of Field of Dreams. Someone's saying, such a strange little chain. It's like our timeline is vibrating. We can feel it, our choices. So, Field of Dreams, if you build it, what's the next line? If you build it, I should probably just look this up in YouTube. Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. First three comments. Fourth comment, they will come. Fifth comment, they will come. Sixth comment, they will come. Danielle said it will come. I think this is the same Danielle that said the Star Wars thing. So she must, her consciousness came from a different reality than ours is. So everybody's saying they will come. They will come. Danielle said it will come. Somebody, Evolve and Free says WTF. All right. Let's see what it says now. Because oh, you can see right here from the title. I'm trying to find it, guys. I don't know why it's not saying it. Oh, there we go.
If you build it, he will come. If you build it, he will come.
If you build it, he will come. So we have people asking, does this apply to VHS tapes? Yes, it does. Go look them up. I'm just looking them up on YouTube because it's the easiest thing to stream. But you guys go look at a Ford logo and you're going to see a little curlicue that never existed there. You guys go get a Monopoly board game. You guys remember the Monopoly Man? I don't know why I keep on taking it off shared screen. I should just keep it on. You guys remember the Monopoly Man? What did he have on his face? Over his eyeball. Because he doesn't have that anymore. Monopoly You guys remember? Yeah, everyone's saying in comments, monocle, monocle, monocle. You guys see a monocle anymore? Go to your grandparents' house and find the Monopoly board game. You will not see this dude with a monocle over his eye, is what I'm saying. We all remember it. We all remember playing the exact game. If you guys go find the exact game that you used to play, will not have a monocle over his eye. Someone's saying eye patch, monocle, spectacle. What else can I? You guys remember CP30? Anybody remember this dude with the silver leg? Because now he has one. So if you've seen the movie recently, of course, yes, because we've shifted timelines. What else did people say in my Instagram boards? Haas avocados, not Haas. So that's a weird one. How do you guys spell Haas avocados? Just ask that out right now. Oh, I got another one too. Haas avocados. Yeah, people in the comments saying Haas. Oh, no. It's not spelled like that. Now it's spelled Hass. I'm sure Haas was probably a family name, right? So that whole the Haas avocado. Yeah, Rudolph Haas. So that's different. What about, you guys remember that scene in Tom Cruise, in Risky Business, and Tom Cruise comes flying from the side in his white t-shirt and I think like whitey tighties, and he's like mopping the room? What, do you guys remember that? Just bring that scene up in your head. I'll just put Risky Business famous scene. Is this it?
Bob, you ready to kick some
You
ass?
guys remember when he took off his face when he came sliding across? Do you guys remember he slides in and does what? Takes off something. He takes off sunglasses. I don't know when this is going to happen. Here it is.
Just take those old records off.
No sunglasses anymore. No sunglasses anymore. He also doesn't have a white t-shirt, but that might actually be my memory. But no sunglasses and no white t-shirt. I kind of remember white t-shirt, but I also only saw this movie once. All right. What else do we got here? This is all meaningful. It's not just all weird, right? I mean, Berenstein Bears versus Bernstein Bears. I never watched that, so that change has happened. Fruit of the Loom. Somebody said Curious George doesn't have a tail. Okay, so what are we getting to? Good question. So all of this, to me, means that we're not in one reality. And that reality is, someone's saying, I remember a white t-shirt. Definitely white t-shirt. Oh, what's up with Tinkerbell? Something with Tinkerbell, right? Do you guys remember Neil Armstrong dying twice? I definitely remember Neil Armstrong dying, and then all of a sudden, a few years later, he died again. And that's kind of what this is all named after Mandela. A lot of people remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison, And then all of a sudden he became the president. The opening Disney logo. Yeah, guys, if you have any other Mandela effects, definitely put it in the chat. Match Burns saying, I always remember Berenstein, but everyone said Bernstein. Okay, so for me, it means that we're in a different reality. And the way that I make sense of it is that we are traveling through realities that are all changing. This is obviously happening in a multidimensional way, and this language that I'm describing it is simple and it's reduced to conversational level. I believe it's a little bit more dynamic than I'm saying it. Basically, the way that I truly see it is that reality is completely forming into a physical nature that we're creating in every single moment. And the past and the future is an illusion. And every reality, every moment has its own projected past and future from the state of now. And so from infinite potential realities, we are forming the one that we're in now that has its own projected past and future that may or may not be the same as the reality that we remember coming through 30 years ago. And so the reality that we came through and we formed into existence 30 years ago also has its own projected past and future. So go back to the time when you first saw Star Wars and that scene came up, Luke, I am your father. The projected past of that reality, how it came to be, they made the movie saying, Luke, I am your father. And even there's videos of the guy who played Darth Vader quoting Luke, I am your father. In this reality, there's videos of him saying the line is Luke, I am your father. So if we are forming reality as it happens, like basically physical reality is formed through an observer from a quantum physics perspective. And so we are the observer observing and creating physical reality. And instead of being in one reality traveling through time, we're traveling through realities all existing now. And so it's a little bit of a paradigm shift on how I am able to multidimensionally view existence. And so, yes, I can view it and I can perceive and play the game that there's a past that was a moment ago and now is the present moment and the future is where I'm going. I definitely can play in that game. Having an ability to perceive it from a different perspective through a different filter offers another dimension of experience. And what I mean by that is if we hold, the past, present, future model in one reality and we just put that to the side, right? And we realize, yes, I'm doing actions today so that tomorrow I can feed my family. And we look at it from a more a quantum perspective. And we perceive reality as happening as we create it. And it's fluid. And from the infinite potentials of everything that there could be, we are choosing this reality that we're in now. And in the next moment, we will choose a different reality. And in every single one of these realities, there's a different past, which means that the future is not tied to our past. because in the traditional, conventional way of viewing it, we're going past to present, and there's a trajectory, and that trajectory goes to a outcome that can be guessed based on the past. But if the past is an illusion, we can change, we can choose. I mean, it doesn't even need to be a different past, because all there is now. But if we're not so tied to the past, that opens up more of a variable trajectory for us to choose the next reality. And so as opposed to traveling through a linear timeline, the way that I perceive it is that we're traveling through realities. And these realities are formed into existence based on something. Now, what is that something? The closest, simplest language I can come up with is it's based on our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. That is the steering wheel. Just like we would be able to lift our hand or make a sound with our fingers, that mechanism of us being able to manipulate our body within physical space, we are very practiced at that. And this other ability to manipulate, that's a strong word, but let's say form existence around us, this is something that we're not extremely practiced at, because we're told that that's impossible. And so we have already a thought pattern that is working against our ability to do it. Because remember, I said the steering wheel was thoughts, emotions, actions. So just like I know that if I lift my hands up, if I send, I don't even know how I'm doing this really. Like, I just want my hand to lift up and it lifts up, right? I can trust that that's happening. And so there's nothing in my thoughts that say, when I go to lift my hand up, it doesn't lift up. If that was the program that I had, then I wouldn't be able to lift my hand up. If I didn't perceive and trust that I could do it. So it's the same thing with creation of reality. Just going to read some comments here. I feel when things disappear and reappear that it's me playing a trick on myself. It's all me, which is crazy. Like, when you actually think, like, with this framework, when you actually start then asking the question, what am I? Because then it gets really interesting. Somebody is saying double stuff Oreos or double stuff Oreos with one F. Now, apparently it's stuff with one F is what this person's saying. I don't have any recollection of that. The Mandela Effect, to me, proves, I don't need validation from this, because I can clearly see it and experience it with my own observational skills. It proves to me that we are in a different reality. And I started noticing this. The Mandela Effect for me really validated my creation abilities, because I was already creating. I was already, quote, manifesting is what some people call it. And the scientific community calls it the placebo effect. All right. So the placebo effect is a very scientifically validated phenomenon where people are manifesting a healing within their body. And the placebo effect is becoming stronger than pharmaceutical prescription drugs now. And it's something that is wreaking havoc on that side of culture, the people that are in charge of that. And with all of this said, the question that I started asking myself is like, okay, if I can create reality, then what am I doing working every single day? This is when I was pretty stressed out as a gym owner because bills were high. I couldn't really leave Los Angeles where I lived. I had to be there close to the gyms, at least a couple times a week. I had to be there, so I couldn't live anywhere else if I wanted to. And to me, that felt like a prison. And I already was creating winning CrossFit competitions and winning physical fitness competitions without training, like just doing experiments. Well, what if I don't train for 10 months? Could I still beat all of these people? So I was proving to myself that on a physical fitness playing field, I was able to compete through the powers of manifestation. I did other experiments too, right? Where I thought of like, this is a crazy one. I was with my buddy. I think I was chatting on like text or something. And I told him that I was going to manifest a red parrot. I just thought of something random, right? And so this guy was a lawyer. He was one of my really good friends. So I told him that. I was like, I'll manifest this thing somehow. I think I was talking to him on my computer. No, that wouldn't have been it. I might have been on my computer talking to him on my phone or something. Put my phone down. I go to close my computer. I go to open my computer. It was one of the two. I think it was open my computer. And I never changed the icon for like when I would go to log into my computer. And the icon that Apple chose for me was a red parrot. And so, of course, his explanation for that was that the red parrot was in my subconscious. And so that was the thing that I chose. And that could very well be true. But the next day, I'm explaining this to a new friend that came from New York, Michael, and the other friend was Reese. But I'm explaining to, I hope his name was Michael, but he was a friend that I knew through a friend. And we're eating at Sage in Culver City. And I'm explaining to him that, yeah, I just manifested a red parrot and blah, blah, on the computer. And he thinks that it was just in my subconscious, which could be true. So now I'm thinking about if I need to play this experiment again. For me, it was a big deal to put like, hey, this is definitely going to happen. I'm going to manifest this thing. And so I put my power into it, my thoughts, my emotions, my actions. I completely trusted that I would manifest this. And so as I'm telling this person at the restaurant this story, the waitress comes by and he looks at her and he just screams, "No way." And I'm looking at him like, why is he freaking out? And he points at the waitress's chest, and she has a huge tattoo of a red parrot on her chest. This is as I'm telling him the story. So this game, this manifestation game, I know people. So the important thing is we do not rape reality. I first started learning about this when I was 19. Luckily, I had a long-term girlfriend who I was loyal to, and I was learning about how to manipulate, which is the actual word, the accurate word, manipulate reality and manipulate people. And I was meditating down to the frequency of the earth using a technique called color entrainment technique, I think is what it's called. And it's a meditation where you meditate down into the frequency of the earth. And I've got a few of those videos on YouTube on how to do this, but be very careful because the purpose of how the technique was presented in my reality was to seduce other individuals. And as I said, I had a long-term girlfriend, so I didn't have any need for that. However, I practiced this technique over and over and over and over again. It took at least 2 weeks for me to feel comfortable doing it because it takes a lot of mental energy. And the thing that surprised me is that when I started pulling images up in my head, my eyes would move around. I'm not moving my eyes right now. I'm just imagining a white horse. A white horse. And the more that I can visualize, my eyes moved around. I was in psychology school because I have a degree in psychology at the same time. And I started studying about the brainwave frequencies and the stages of sleep. And there's this stage of sleep that happens while you're in a deep restful state that's called REM, which stands for rapid eye movement. And REM is happening as you're dreaming. And so to me, my explanation for why my eyeball still to this day goes nuts when I visualize something very clearly is because I'm activating my pineal gland, which is happening when you're dreaming, and I'm accessing imagination. It's a place. I go to the imagination, which is the nation. It's the place of dreams. And so for whatever reason, when I meditated, my eyes would go nuts. Almost maybe you saw the red parrot on her chest in the future to put it in your head in the past. Right, Scott. This past, present, future thing, I'm not really getting into that, but that's definitely a good line of conversation is how do we in the future send messages to our past? If you guys get practice at speaking to your past self, then you will start receiving messages from your future self, which I don't know if you were referring to, Scott, but and eventually you don't even need to consciously do it. But right now, if you send a message to yourself, like let's say yesterday or let's say last week, what bit of information could have really helped you out last week? And maybe even right now, my brain is like in explanation mode. I can't really think of anything, but maybe you guys can, or maybe before you go to bed, you can think about a message you can send to yourself yesterday. Or maybe when you wake up before the sunrise, you can do the same thing. And as you consistently practice this, you may then also start receiving the messages from tomorrow. Because if you send a message back to yourself yesterday and you're committed to doing that tomorrow, then tomorrow, what are you doing? You're sending a message back to yourself today. Isaac's saying his eyes do it too. Like, do we manifest or reading the future? Do we manifest or reading the future? Good question, Scott. I used to think I was psychic in high school, middle school, because I could not like all the time, but I would know what someone's going to say, or I would see something happening, and it would be so subtle that most of the time I wouldn't speak up, and then it would happen. So I would think that I was predicting the future. And then after practicing with it, then it felt like I was creating the quote future. I was creating reality. And now I'm back to I'm perceiving something and creating it. It's almost like a choice. And this is how I explain it to myself and others, I guess. So if we imagine that these realities are manifesting instantaneously around us that we perceive and we can manipulate in a third dimensional physical reality, and in every moment it's happening, then we get a desire, right? And what I used to think is that I got a desire and then I manifested it. I created it. And now what I feel is that word desire actually etymologically means from the stars. So desire, de sedire, de from, sedire, stars. So de sedire, desire, means from the stars. So now when I get a desire, it's from the stars. And to me, what it means is that out of the infinite realities, I'm in tension with one of them. So there's a signal, an intention. So I'm in tension. I'm being pulled towards that reality. Now, if I continue to stay in tension with that reality and align my thoughts, my emotions, my feelings, my actions, my circle, my environment, I'm aligning it to that reality will pull me into it, and that will be what reality I travel into. And we call that intention, right? So out of infinite possible realities, you're in tension with one of them. And so you hold that tension. And for me, it feels like a line from the heart. And I let that guide me. It guides my thoughts. It guides my emotions. It guides my actions. Now, here's an example. Like, let's say, I'll give you a materialistic example. So one time we sold our cars because we invested in something. So we needed like 100 G's. So we were like, let's sell some vehicles. So we sold our vehicles, and we were going to get a new one. And we're just going to pick up like, and I'm not a fan of Tesla EMF, but we have Teslas because, but I know EMF's a thing. But one time we went to the Tesla showroom, and we had a Tesla Y, and we got rid of it, and we were just going to get a Tesla 3 Performance. And so we go to the showroom, we test, they don't have a Tesla 3 Performance, which is the lowest Tesla you can buy for those of you who don't know. We test, and the Tesla Y is like the next most expensive. Then the S and the X are like the very expensive ones. And so they don't have a Performance, so we test drive the 3. It's like a regular car, and I'm not feeling it. And we go back to the showroom to hand over the card, which is the key, and there's a Tesla S Plaid. Now, this is like 3 times the price, as maybe even 4 times the price at the time. This is like when all the microchips weren't. This was at the height of the car's price, like in 2022, if you guys remember, when cars were extremely expensive because some sort of chips weren't being made. And so it wasn't even aware, like it wasn't even a that's a lie. Like 2 or 3 years before, when they announced the Plaid, I had a hit. I had a desire for it. Okay. And then when we went to the dealership, we were going to test drive a 3. That's what I was aligned to. And then there was an S Plaid in the showroom, and we sat down in it. And when I sat down in it, I just had this feeling. I had this desire. And it wasn't, I didn't have to reach for it. It was just a desire. Anyways, 2 weeks later, Tesla Plaid was in our driveway. And somehow that happened. And this is when people had to wait like 8 months to get their cars. And we had ours like instantaneously. Did I have to buy it? Yes. Did I think I could ever buy it? No. And I've been able to manifest businesses this way. I've been able to manifest gyms. I needed an extra $5,000 when I was just opening up my gyms to move into a bigger facility. So I wrote a check and I made it a date out to myself to the end of that month, and $5,000 extra dollars came to me. One time I was opening up a second facility and I needed like 100-ish K. And once again, I feel this desire and I trust. The important thing to do is trust. It's like trying to balance on top of for me, it feels like an unstable dock, or like a barrel of some sort on top of water. Like if you can imagine balancing on something that's filled with air on top of water, but it's really unstable and you don't have your balance yet. Like if you guys have the first time on a surfboard that's still, what are those things called? Paddle boards? Or that's similar, but it's even more wobbly than that. When you get a desire and there's this balancing point that the balance isn't physical. It's thoughts, emotions, and actions. It does have a physical thing, but first it happens in the thoughts. And it's just like wobbly, like, can I hold on to this? Because what is the unbound? What is falling off this board equal? It equals all of the thoughts that say that no, this isn't the reality that is for you. And there's way more of those. That's why when you're balancing on something, there's only one possible way that you just keep on rebalancing. Like, you have to find that center point. Any other direction off center, you're falling. And that's what it feels like to me when something like being in a Tesla dealership, going to purchase something that's 25% of the price of this other vehicle and being like, whoa, really? Really? And then I'm like, all right, okay, done. I'm pretty practiced at it. And so my balance is there. I can keep my thoughts centered and my emotions. I can keep the trust so that reality aligns for that to happen. It's the same thing with finding houses with ocean views and sunrises and sunsets. We design our houses before we move into them. Someone's saying magic mirror. Exactly. Were you just manifesting, or do you both and your wife manifest on the same thing, if that makes sense? So, for instance, we lived in a Laguna Beach house, which if you guys go to my Instagram profile, it's the reel that's tagged that has 16 million views. It's just me walking through the house and showing the deck view over the ocean. We wrote down that what we would like in a house when we were living in a Culver City apartment, sharing it with another person she might not like me saying this, but there was like cockroaches everywhere. And like, it was not a good place. Next to the freeway, dirty. You know, the dumpster didn't even have a lock on it, just to give you an idea of like just how much trash was always around. And it was like that in between me owning gyms and then starting up our Purium organization. And so we started doing Purium, and we started looking at houses in LA during, like, right before the pandemic hit it. And we went to a house that had almost everything, but it was kind of like inland, not in a good area, but it had a lot of the stuff that we would like. And of course, they were like, there's no way you guys are going to need to pay 6 months up front, because we didn't have money at the time. And so we just took that house and we're like, we liked all of these things, but let's keep on doing more. Like, we made a list, impossible list. Like, we wanted to live in the mountains and see the ocean. Like, it's kind of like contradictory in a way. And from there, we went to Mount Shasta, and a year and a half later, we were living in Laguna Beach with, to the T, the exact house that we designed. Having a yard in the mountains, overlooking the ocean. Even our real estate person that looked for the house was like, I don't know if you're going to get all of these things. And then we did. And it was the cheapest out of the list that she gave us. So it was like even better. It was a bonus. But here's the thing. Remember I mentioned going into the car dealership, and when the Plaid got released, having a hit of it, like a desire. And then years later, I went back into the reality, and that whatever that intention was that was swinging around, it caught me again once I was in that reality. Well, living in Laguna Beach was my original intention moving to California in a house like we used to have 16 years prior when I lived in Michigan. And I thought about what it would be like to live in California. It was that house. And I moved where when I moved to California? Laguna Beach. Why? Because one time I saw the beginning of that show series, Laguna Beach. I saw I didn't even watch TV since I was 17 years old, but I saw the opening of that show, Laguna Beach. And I was like, wow, that's where I'm going to go. And so I moved to California, lived in Laguna Beach in a closet that I was splitting. It wasn't even a room. It was like a bunk bed behind a curtain. There's no way a kid from Michigan that's used to making $13 an hour could survive in a place like that. So I ended up moving away from Laguna Beach almost immediately as soon as I got there. And 16 years later is when we were moving into that house. So it was like I had that original thing that I was unable to stay on the balance, right? I was unable to stay there. And then 14 years later in Culver City, we're designing this house. And again, it took us a little bit to balance the thoughts, the emotions, the intentions for it to align, for us to have this. Also, on top of that, I created / manifested 2 other houses at the top of the Hollywood Hills. 3. One wasn't at the top. 2 were at the very top. 1 was almost up there. I already had manifested 3 houses in the hills that were paid for by somebody else. So I was getting there on the way in that 16-year journey. Amazing houses. One of them was part of a business deal. One of them, one of my clients' partners died. So then he moved out of town and like just left me the house for like 6 months. And another one was one of my other clients moved out of his house, kind of the same thing. So I was getting practiced at this reality until it was like to the point where I could pay for my house with Caro. Back to the intention of this. When I was paralyzed in my wheelchair, I described my future to walk again and travel full-time in my motorhome with a rescue dog, and all of this came true. Thank you, RV Benny is grateful for sharing that. Planted seeds and then sprouted. How did you break free from the poverty mindset? It's a practice. Okay, so here's an important thing that I learned. So RV Benny is grateful said 2016 to 2018, I was between a bed and a wheelchair. So here's one of the simplest things that every single person listening right now can incorporate. It may take years to integrate. It may take a day. Depends on your ability to practice this. If you would like, because we mentioned poverty mindset. So let's think from let's say house, car, relationship, clothes. So when I think of poverty, I think of certain thoughts and feelings about my clothes, my car, my house, my work life. I have these thoughts and feelings and emotions tied to like a poverty version of that. The simplest thing you can do to break out of poverty mindset is start looking at those items in your life with gratitude, with a wealth mindset, with an abundant mindset, with a joyful, with a happy, with a I'm so glad I get to hop in this car right now. And man, I love how it smells. I just love driving in this car right now. If you're unable to do that in your present situation, there's never, ever going to be a reality where you actually have those same feelings and thoughts and actions about your vehicle. So your thoughts, your feelings, and actions come first. You know what we did between Culver City and Laguna Beach? We moved to a cheaper place in Mount Shasta because the pandemic happened. But man, I loved it. We both did. It was cheaper than Culver City. No cockroaches. Completely awesome. Actually, we moved to like 5 places. We were staying in Airbnbs a month at a time. And then we eventually settled in a townhouse. We loved every single one of them. They were all cheaper than the Culver City place. because we're living now in the middle of nowhere. All cheaper, but our emotional states changed about our housing. Our thoughts changed about our housing. And so that's not completely relative, but it gets the point across. Change your thoughts and your emotion about your clothing. Love your clothing. If you want clothing that you love, you must love your clothing. It happens first. If you desire, that's how you get intention. That's how you get, you find that signal from another reality. Love your clothing. Love. If there's things about your partner that you wish were different, love. Amplify the love. Amplify what you do like. Maybe it's this partner is going to fall into more of that. There's going to match more of that. Or maybe it's somebody else. Your vehicle, every time you walk through the parking lot and look at it, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? You have a choice there. And so there's different layers of how we're perceiving reality. We can perceive it from past, present, future. I'm in one reality. What I have done is going to equal where I am now, and where I am now is what I do now is going to cause the effect in the future. And so that is all going to get colored in with this other filter. So both these filters go on top of each other. I'm not saying that we have to get rid of cause and effect, linear time, physical reality. We're now just putting another filter on. And as we put on, is this going to work? So as we put on one set of glasses, we see from this dimension. And then as we put on another lens, we now have them both overlaid on each other. And so now we have, I'm creating this based on my thoughts, emotions, actions, and how I was taught in school how this all works. And so you're walking to your car and you're noticing how much you love it, even though it's a 1993 Ford Probe that's leaking oil all over the place. You're looking at the oil. You're loving it all. Look at the seats. There's dirt. There's sand. It has that smell of broken down old plastic that's been burning in the sun forever. And then an opportunity comes by where if you were just in one of those filters, you may not be able to see it. So if you're just in creation mode, like the hippies are, that like, I'm manifesting everything, you may not see like this path where maybe you have to do some work for free, but you get to drive another person's Mercedes G-Wag for the next 2 years. Maybe not even for free. Maybe it's a new job. That's not one of the perks. It's one of the responsibilities. It's what you get to do for working at this job. And you see it kind of is somewhere in between. It's like an in-between solution that doesn't really line up with any of those filters. But both of those filters put together, you didn't exactly just manifest it out of magic and get a new car without having to do anything. And you didn't exactly work hard to get it, but somehow you now are driving a car that you love every single day. And from what I find, that's what happens. You get this sort of like in-between solution that somehow works itself out. And the more and more and more and more and more that you do it, those two filters kind of come in and it all just makes sense. That's where like these other houses that I said other people were paying for kind of came in. I know somebody that wanted to move to America and play in the Pepperdine basketball team. And he did in a commercial. He was a star player in a commercial. So this is where like this manifestation is like kind of amazing because it fits your reality. No, if you right now are in a reality where you're driving a piece of junk car and you love it, odds are you're probably not going to tomorrow be buying a Ferrari. But there's a reality where you are driving something that you would love, maybe even more than what you're imagining would be the ideal outcome, which is buy Ferrari. You might have some completely weird but so perfect reality where it just makes more sense than how you were imagining it happen. And for me, it's important that people at least practice this because we're all creating this reality, this thing that we call life. And it's a big part of my mission to be living in everybody's dream world as opposed to everybody's nightmare or everybody's sort of just ruminating idea that life sucks. You're choosing that. And the more people that know that, from my perspective, I'm trusting the more people that choose differently, the better reality gets for everybody. And it's going to take that to drastically shift this reality. Because if we just look at the traditional paradigm of past, present, future, we can see that we're heading completely to disaster. Unless some of this other fairy dust gets sprinkled in there and we all start realizing that we love what's going on right now, and this is all necessary and perfect for our growth as a society, for our ascension as a planet, for our evolution as a person. This is all serving a purpose, and we can look at the worst parts of reality, like war, like the abuse we had as a child, and we can look at it from the perspective of gratefulness. We already know what it's like to look at it from a perspective of guilt and shame and anger. We're already well practiced at that. Do we wish to continue forming reality around us with that filter? Because it's going to take balancing out. Let's go back to the shame, anger, sadness, hate. And what's the missing emotional states? What's the missing thoughts? Can you do the work to make it make sense so that you can fulfill, make it full, make it back to the light? I think about all of this like emotional states. If we're too strong in one of them, then we never ever completed the circuit. It's an unbalanced, unharmonized experience. Let's look at it at full spectrum so that we can have a full spectrum existence. It's not to take away from anything that's happening. It's not to give permission to anything. It's to accept what is and to respond to it with our full sense of self so that we then can go into the next scenario with the full sense of self. And we get practice at what is fullness? Fullness is light. And so we see everything. We see the quote negative. We see the quote positive. And we are. And through that, what do the religions say? I'm being careful saying this because people will misinterpret it. The religions say that God is in all things, which means that if this notion of God or the universe or source or spirit is in us, and the more that we can expand out into that perspective where everything is happening as it's happening, perfectly as it's happening now, for me to experience here in an individual body that is seemingly going through past, present, future. So I'm here having this experience perfectly as I should be because, fill in the blank, look at it from a higher perspective. Choose. And as we choose, we all form reality based on our chosen intentions. as opposed to the people that know this stuff already and have been passed down lineage and secret societies and occult societies, and they've been doing ceremonies about this stuff for forever. And they're pulling reality strings and manipulating us through things like TV and news and music. That's all been chosen to put us into a certain frame of mind, to put us into their program, so that they can continue to create reality. The kings and queens of this reality have never had the power. They're just the orchestrator of the people, and the people have the power. It's all of our consciousnesses. You put a king in a room with 1,000 people, those 1,000 people give the king the power. And all the king did was dress in some flashy clothes and put his chair above everybody, his throne, just slightly elevated from everybody else. Or maybe they put their picture on the money. And what are we doing? We're looking with love and admiration, and this is all powerful. Not realizing that we're the ones that are creating this whole scenario. We always were. This is why, do you guys realize maybe the people listening right now, my audience, don't really watch that much TV? I stopped watching TV when I was 17. That's why I think that I appear so weird to other people, because I'm not in the program. And it's not just my current existence. I've always been a little bit of an outcast. People always accuse me of trying to be weird. I never was. I just don't know what normal is. I don't know what the program says to be. Just be aware of the programs that you're inputting into yourself. Because, as I said, let's create a dream world as opposed to something that is being manipulated by others who have their right. Guys, in all of this, if you're looking at reality, this is one other important thing having to do with the Mandela Effect, having to do with us choosing our realities. If we're looking at people that are pulling the strings with hate and anger, and they shouldn't do that, respect them. They have chosen that reality. If you cannot respect the ones that are controlling reality, then you will never, ever be able to sit in that same seat. Same thing with the car. If you're looking at people that have the car and you hate them, you think that you're going to be a person that you hate? No, you're not. You're going to self-sabotage it. Your realities will not match up. Take their vibration and fill it in. What would you do if you ran a city? What would you do if you ran a corporation? Do it. This is the step, right? This is the responsibility. What would you do if you ran a country? Can you take some of that and color it into how you live your life on an individual level? All systems evolve through the evolution of self. It all starts with the individual. And so my invitation is to release the hate, the anger for those that have an agenda and give them the right to their agenda. And all we're doing is picking up our own power and amplifying our own agenda. And the more of us that can do that and spread, agenda is a strong word, but spread out this flow, this harmony with self, with others, the more that the whole entire system is going to reflect that. And so the power that we have, if we all use it, reality will start to shift. It doesn't take that many people. Do you guys know how many people are ruling the world right now? Not that many. They can all fit in a conference room. It doesn't take that many people to shift this reality. And the multidimensional entities, the extraterrestrials, call them angels. They're waiting for us to get on board, get in line with this, because we cannot get completely revealed all of our power. It would be a disaster if we were still in this same state of hating life and hating other people and destruction. That would be a disaster. And so we, the people, get to harmonize our intentions, get to harmonize our realities, and we will then have more practice so that when we get our powers unveiled, some of us already have unveiled powers. Some of us can look into the Akashic records. Some of us are psychic. Some of us are getting messages from other entities. Some of us are downloading information from pure source consciousness. And they deserve that. And so we get there by being in alignment with the greatest version of self, with our full spectrum self, with everyone. Because it's not just the self, it's we're all here as cells in a grander organization. Thanks for the comments, everybody. Bye-bye.